Hello and welcome back to today's video. So this is video number 3 out of 3, of course. So there are 2 more videos that came before this: an introduction to Python for beginners. Then the next video talks about what is data types, of course, in Python. Today we're going to be talking about conditional statements, specifically the if conditional statements. So we're going to be covering if, else, and elif. So what I promised myself I'm going to be doing like at the start of all these videos is try and briefly explain the use case of all these functions for data analytics or data science before we jump into the video. So for anyone who's familiar with SQL, so if you're here today and you're familiar with SQL, the if statement is not very different from the case statement in SQL. So let's say you have a data set and it has a bunch of countries. So I don't know, you're doing research across Africa, probably trying to understand how people consume various social media platforms by country. And when you're doing your analysis, you decide, okay, I don't want to just see this by country, but I also want to see it by region. The if statement can help you group, or should I say categorize, group, bin your data into the various regions. So you can be like, okay, if country is Kenya, put it in East Africa. If country is Nigeria, put it in West Africa. If country is Central African Republic, put it in Central Africa, and so on and so forth. So let's get into the video. And the first thing I'm going to do is to just introduce you guys to a very basic if statement. So you all remember variables. We covered it in the first video, and it's inevitable going forward. We're going to be creating a lot of variables. So it was also covered in the second video. So here we're going to create 2 variables. So let's say variable x is equals to 10 and variable y is equals to 20. So you can have an if statement that goes like, if x is greater than y. Always remember to watch the syntax, yeah? Print x is greater than y. So when we print that, what happens? So we're waiting for it to run. And we can just create a few more here. Okay, so the cell finished running and nothing happened. So nothing happened because, as you can see, x is equals to 10, y is equals to 20, and x is not greater than y. But if we made x 100, what would happen? X is greater than y. So that's basically what an if statement does. It just, for lack of better words, it's just English, you know. So if you have a bunch of countries in your list and you only want to pick out Kenya, so you'll be like, if country is equals to Kenya, and equal has to be double. Okay, yeah. So let's do that too. So this is example 2. So let's say you are asking a user to say the country, their form. So country equals to input, what country are you from? We also covered input in the first video. So if you're not familiar with how input works, please go back to the first video, watch it, then let's continue. Or you could continue and finish, then go back, because I'm using it minimally in this tutorial. So yeah, then we're like, if country equals. So now here, this equals is assigning. When you do a double equals, it's checking if they're the same. So this one assigns, this one is just checking. So if country equals to Kenya, print print the client is, you can put plus the name of the country. And we need to put space. Okay, so let's run this. We see what happens. So Kenya, and there you go. So what would happen if I said Uganda? And I just remember nothing happens because our if statement only covers for one country. Then the client is from. Okay. So how do we cater for other countries? Yeah. So if someone says, "Oh, I'm from here or here or here," that's where Elif comes in. Yeah. So we say introducing if. Okay. So we'll still ask the client the same thing. Yeah. And now we make our scope a bit bigger, but for purposes of this tutorial, I'll only cover very few East African countries. So if country equals Kenya, okay, we can just copy this here. Then the next thing will be if country. So I have my list of East African countries here. Let me just access them so I can copy paste quickly. Okay. Okay, so I'll just take a couple. Control copy, Control V. Uganda. Okay, let me just go in order. So there, and then print. So this just looks like it's easier. So it's easier to do this because you don't want to type the name of the country again and again and again and again. So you just refer to the variable that we created, which is country. Yeah. So you just call the variable because whatever the client puts in, that's what will appear here. So let me just get rid of this so I can just copy this two more times. Can copy this 2 more times. So we add 2 more African countries. So we have Kenya, we have Rwanda. Let's do Uganda. And we can do Tanzania. Okay. So now, if you run this and you say you're from Tanzania, the client is from Tanzania. So what happens again if you put a country that is not here. Let's say, which country do we go with? Let's go with a country that is in West Africa. So let's go with Benin. Okay, it closes there because Benin is not it's not among one of the countries that we recognized in this if statement here. So this is the point where we introduce else. Introducing else. Okay, so let's copy all this again. And then we do, so country, input what country you're from. If country equals to Kenya, if country is equals to Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania. Okay, so we're just assuming East Africa only has those 4 countries. So the next thing you can do is be like else, print country not in East Africa. So if we run that and we write Benin, country not in East Africa. So ideally, this is it's just a very short example to try and illustrate how if and else work. But ideally, if we were to go back to the first example here, x is equals to 100, y is equals to 20. If x is greater than y, print x is greater than y. But what if x was not greater than y? We don't want to not have an output. You can be like else print not greater than y. So at least this time you get some form of output. And that is exactly what we're having here. So the assumption is we've catered for all countries in East Africa. So if someone enters a country that is not in East Africa, you'll get a result of country not in East Africa. So if we are to look at like my initial example, so you are doing research, how social media is consumed across Africa, and let's say you're specifically interested in like how it's consumed in East Africa, yeah? Okay, you want to answer 2 questions, how it's consumed in East Africa alone, then how it's consumed across various regions, so East Africa versus West Africa. So when you use the if statement to create an additional column, yeah, and now on top of having a column Kenya, you'll also have a column East Africa. So it's so easy to group your data into regions and also select where region is equals to East Africa, then group it by country. Though side notes, when we get to the tutorial of using Python pandas, there's like, and there's a function for this, like pandas has a function for this, but still there are times you will have to integrate like this if conditional statements with other functions. So it's still something that is very important for you to know. So yes, I hope that makes sense to you. I hope the use case also makes sense to you. And I guess that's it for this video. Yeah, like, yeah. That was a nice and short one. But yeah, I really hope you now understand how if else works. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the comments. One thing I'm thinking of doing, but probably at the end of this tutorial, I don't know, or with each tutorial, I pick some sample questions. No, I think it will work better at the end of the tutorial. Like once you've gone through some basic Pythons, I can look for some questions, probably on LeetCode. And yeah, we can do them together and we can see how these various functions come together. Otherwise, thank you so much for making it to the end. I really, really hope you've learned something. Personally, I'm learning a lot. Like this is nice. Like it's very nice to have a refresher of, Python for the sake of upskilling, for the sake of school, since for my master's program, I've chosen to be submitting my assignments using Python. We have the option of Python or R. And yeah, between a full-time job, I think it's just easier to stick to a language that I'm a bit familiar with and I'm not really learning from scratch. But yeah, I really hope you're enjoying. I really hope you are learning. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down below. And yeah, so the next two videos I'm going to cover is while loops and for loops. I'll probably do them separately. I might do them as one video. I really don't know. But yeah, watch out for part 2 of control flow, which will be while loops or for loops. And yeah, thank you guys and bye.